I can't take care of your son. My mom refused coldly. You're on your own now. I texted her as I cancelled all the payments. Dad added, some people just expect too much help from family. My brother agreed. You should handle your own problems without bothering us. Uncle nodded. Some children just demand too much from their parents. And added, family has limits on what they can do. On Thanksgiving Day, my dad came begging. I don't owe you anything. So this happened about 4 months ago. I'm Jovi, 29, a single mom to my 7-year-old son, Lucas. I work full-time as a graphic designer at a marketing firm in Phoenix and juggle parenting solo. His dad vanished when Lucas was 3, and honestly, I never looked back. Life's been a constant uphill battle, but we made it work. Before I dive in, if you've ever been the one your family expected to sacrifice everything for, but got nothing when you desperately needed them, this one's for you. Don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories like this. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. Here we go. In October, my company announced a mandatory week-long conference in Denver. It was huge, presentations, networking, the works. Missing it would mean kissing goodbye the senior designer position I'd been grinding toward for 4 years. The promotion would change everything for Lucas and me. Better salary, better benefits, actual financial breathing room. Naturally, I called my mom, Linda, 62, asking if she could watch Lucas for 6 days. She's been retired for 3 years, lives 20 minutes away in Scottsdale, and constantly tells people how much she adores being a grandmother. Of course, honey, she said immediately. Lucas and I will have such fun together. Relief flooded through me. I booked the flight, arranged Lucas's after-school snacks, packed his favorite dinosaur pajamas, even wrote detailed notes about his bedtime routine and which cartoons he liked best. Then, 2 days before my departure, my phone rang. Jovi, I've been thinking, Mom's voice was different, distant. I just don't think I can take care of your son. It's too much responsibility. I raised my kids already. I'm done with all that now. My blood turned to ice. Mom, I fly out in 48 hours. Everything's arranged. Lucas is excited about staying with you. I just need 6 days. She actually scoffed. You should have made better backup plans. I'm not your emergency babysitter. I begged. I pleaded. I reminded her this was my career, our future. Nothing worked. Some people just expect too much help from family, Dad chimed in when I called him, desperate. My brother Marcus jumped on the family group text. You should be able to handle your own problems without dragging everyone else into your mess. Uncle Pete, Mom's older brother, added fuel. Some children just demand too much from their parents. You're a grown woman now, Jovi. Then Aunt Carol delivered the final blow. Family has limits on what they can do for each other. I cancelled the trip. Watched the promotion go to my colleague Amanda. Spent 3 days crying in my bathroom while Lucas played outside, oblivious to how his future just got dimmer. But something inside me finally snapped. That night, sitting on my kitchen floor with unpaid bills scattered around me, something clicked. I wasn't just disappointed, I was furious. Not the hot, explosive kind of anger, but the cold, calculating kind that changes you forever. I'd been the family's personal ATM and crisis manager my entire adult life. When Dad's transmission died 2 years ago, who loaned him $3,000 interest-free? Me. When Mom needed someone to drive her to cataract surgery at 6 a.m. because your father doesn't do well with medical things? Me. When Marcus got laid off and needed help with his mortgage for 6 months? Me again. I pulled out my laptop and created a spreadsheet. Every payment, every favor, every time I dropped everything to rescue someone who wouldn't spare 6 days for my career. Mom's car insurance, I'd been paying it for 2.5 years. $127 monthly. Autopay cancelled. Dad's credit card minimum payment from when he bought that ridiculous fishing boat, 18 months of $89 monthly payments. Cancelled. Marcus's phone bill on my family plan, gone. Aunt Carol's Amazon Prime that I'd been covering, deleted. Uncle Pete's Netflix password that somehow became my financial responsibility, changed. The landscaping service for Mom's house that I'd been secretly funding because the yard work is too much, terminated. As I clicked through each cancellation, I felt lighter. Not vindictive, liberated. Then I opened the family group chat and typed, You're absolutely right. Family has limits. You're all on your own now. My phone immediately exploded. 17 missed calls in the first hour. Text after text demanding explanations, calling me selfish, threatening to have a serious conversation about my attitude. I powered it off and took Lucas to Chuck E. Cheese for dinner. We played skee-ball until closing time, and for the first time in months, I didn't check my bank balance before swiping my card. For 3 weeks, blissful silence. No emergency calls about broken appliances I needed to research and fix. No guilt trips about missing Sunday dinners because I was working overtime to pay everyone's bills. No last-minute requests to babysit my teenage niece because you don't have weekend plans anyway. Lucas and I developed new routines. Saturday morning pancakes became a tradition instead of rushing to help someone move furniture. We visited the Arizona Science Center, went hiking at South Mountain, had movie marathons with popcorn and hot chocolate. I bought myself new boots, real leather ones, not clearance rack specials, without calculating how it would affect my ability to cover mom's insurance. We ordered Thai food on a school night just because Lucas wanted pad Thai and I wanted to say yes to something fun. But the peace couldn't last forever. Thanksgiving was coming, and traditionally, that meant the whole circus gathering at Mom and Dad's house in Scottsdale for turkey, football, and me doing all the dishes while everyone else watched the game. This year, though, radio silence. No invitation. No planning calls. No requests for me to bring my famous green bean casserole and stay late to clean up. November rolled by quietly. Then December. Lucas asked a few times why we weren't seeing Grandma and Grandpa, and I told him they were busy with other things. He shrugged and went back to building Lego castles, seemingly unbothered by their absence. I, however, felt something I hadn't experienced in years: genuine peace. No constant anxiety about who needed what. No stretching every paycheck to cover other people's emergencies. No sleepless nights wondering how to fix problems that weren't mine to begin with. Then came the knock that would test everything I'd built. Christmas Day. Lucas was in his new Batman pajamas, surrounded by wrapping paper and the Lego Millennium Falcon we'd splurged on. I was making hot chocolate, actually humming, when 3 sharp knocks interrupted our perfect morning. My stomach dropped. I knew that knock, urgent but controlled, the way Dad knocked when he was trying to stay calm but failing. I opened the door to find him standing in the cold December air, holding a wrinkled grocery bag from Kroger. His hair was messier than usual, his jacket zipped wrong, and his eyes had that desperate look I remembered from my childhood when money was tight. "Can we talk?" he asked, not meeting my eyes. I just stared. "Now you remember where I live." He shifted uncomfortably. "Jovi, please. It's important." More important than my career was in October. His shoulders sagged. "Your mother's in the hospital." The words hit like cold water. "What?" "She fell yesterday morning. Slipped on ice in the driveway trying to get the newspaper. Broke her ankle, bruised her ribs pretty badly. The doctors want to keep her for observation." He finally looked up. "Marcus is in Colorado with his in-laws. Carol says she's not emotionally equipped to handle medical situations." "And Pete?" He trailed off. "And Pete what?" "Pete's in Florida with his new girlfriend. Won't be back until New Year's." Dad's voice cracked slightly. "You're the only one who can really handle this kind of thing." I crossed my arms, feeling that familiar tug of old patterns trying to reassert themselves. I thought I was too demanding. Too much trouble. "We were wrong," he said quietly. "No," I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "You were honest. That's what you really think about me, that I'm only valuable when I'm useful." "Jovi, please. I'm not asking for much." "You're asking me to drop everything again. For people who made it crystal clear that I don't matter unless I'm fixing your problems." His voice rose. "She's your mother. And I'm her daughter." I snapped back. But that didn't count when I needed help, did it? The words hung between us like a challenge. Dad's face went through several emotions before settling on something I'd never seen before: shame. "You're being cruel," he said finally. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "No, I'm just giving back what I received." I gestured to the bag in his hands. "If that's food, take it back to whoever needs it. If it's guilt, you can leave it on the porch with all the other things I'm not carrying anymore." And then I closed the door. Gently, quietly, but firmly. He didn't knock again. By New Year's Eve, the family group chat came back to life with a vengeance, but not in any way I'd hoped for. It started with Marcus posting a photo of Mom in her hospital bed, ankle wrapped in a blue cast, looking appropriately pitiful. "Can't believe my sister won't even visit her own mother in the hospital," he wrote. "Some people just forget where they came from." Aunt Carol immediately piled on, "So disappointing. After everything Linda and Robert did for that girl, and this is how she repays them? Just shameful." Uncle Pete, apparently back from his Florida vacation, added, "Some kids grow up entitled. They forget who sacrificed to raise them right." The messages kept coming throughout the day. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly appeared to offer their opinions on my character. Family friends weighed in with vague posts about the importance of honoring your parents. Dad sent private messages, "Your mother cries every day asking why you won't come see her. I hope you're proud of yourself." Mom even managed to call Lucas's school, Saguaro Elementary, and left a message with the front office asking if Grandma could just get a photo of her precious grandson to help her heal. But I noticed something crucial in all this digital drama. Not one person asked how Lucas and I were doing. Not one message inquired about our Christmas, our health, our happiness. Nobody wondered why I'd reached my breaking point or what had driven me to such a drastic decision. They weren't grieving my absence. They were performing their outrage for an audience, trying to cast me as the villain in a story where they'd always been the heroes. I didn't respond to any of it. Instead, I posted a single photo on my Facebook page, Lucas and me at the Desert Botanical Garden, both of us genuinely smiling in the afternoon sunshine. My caption was simple: "When you stop feeding relationships that only consume, you finally get to keep your peace." Within minutes, the reactions started. Marcus sent an angry face emoji. Aunt Carol unfriended me entirely. Dad called and left a voicemail that I deleted without listening to. But something beautiful happened too. Old friends from college reached out with support. My co-worker Amanda, who'd gotten the promotion I'd missed, sent a private message, "I heard through the grapevine what happened. I'm so sorry, and honestly, good for you for setting boundaries." My neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, knocked on the door with homemade tamales. "I saw your family drama on Facebook," she said with a knowing smile. "My daughter went through something similar. You're doing the right thing, Mija. Family that only takes never learns to give." Lucas thrived during this time. Without the constant stress of family emergencies, I was more present with him. We started cooking together on weekends. He joined the school art club. His teacher, Mr. Thompson, commented on how much happier and more confident he seemed. "Sometimes," I told Lucas one evening as we built a blanket fort in the living room, "we have to protect our peace by keeping some people at a distance." "Like how we lock our door at night to keep safe?" he asked. "Exactly like that, buddy. Sometimes love means having strong boundaries." But I knew this period of calm wouldn't last forever. In my heart, I sensed someone would eventually come knocking again, and I'd have to decide once more where my loyalties truly lay. It was a gray February evening, the kind of Arizona winter night that tricks you into thinking it might actually rain. Lucas and I were building the ultimate blanket fort in our living room, complete with string lights and a secret password, when I heard it. Not the urgent knocking of someone in crisis, but something softer. Tired. I knew before I opened the door. The rhythm, the hesitation between knocks, it was Mom. She stood there in the dim porch light, still wearing a walking boot on her left foot, her hair unusually disheveled. Her makeup was smeared, mascara creating dark tracks down her cheeks like she'd finally run out of the pride that had sustained her for decades. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, but in presence. The woman who'd always commanded every room, who'd never met a conversation she couldn't dominate, was now shifting nervously from foot to foot. "Can I talk to you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, Jovi." I stepped outside and pulled the door closed behind me, making sure Lucas wouldn't hear whatever was coming. "What do you want?" Not cold, just flat. Like someone who'd built walls and couldn't afford to lower them again. "I've been thinking," she began, her eyes still glassy with unshed tears. "About what I said. About what we all said. I shouldn't have done that to you. I waited. I didn't realize how much you were doing for all of us until you stopped." Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I am truly, deeply sorry. I took you for granted, like you'd always be there, like electricity or running water. I never saw how much I was taking from you." She wiped her nose with a crumpled tissue. "You were right to cut us off. I see that now." I remained still. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just listened. "I've been trying to manage everything alone these past few months," she continued. "Groceries with this boot, doctor's appointments, trying to cook with my ankles still healing. I couldn't even open a jar of pickles last week and ended up crying in the kitchen." I remembered my own kitchen floor breakdowns, and how none of them had cared. "I want to fix this," she whispered. "I want to be part of Lucas's life again. I want to help, really help, not just when it's convenient. I want to be a real mother to you." That last sentence broke something inside me. Because suddenly I wasn't looking at my mother, I was looking at a woman who'd had 29 years to figure out how to love me unconditionally and had chosen convenience instead. Now that her convenience required my love, she'd remembered how to offer it. But I'd learned something crucial over these months of peace. Sorry doesn't pay your bills. Sorry doesn't watch your kid for 6 days. Sorry doesn't undo decades of conditional love disguised as family loyalty. "I hear you," I said quietly, "and I believe you're sorry." Her face brightened with hope. "But I'm not ready to let you back in." The hope crumbled. "You'd leave me standing out here in the cold." I looked her directly in the eyes. "You left me out in the cold my entire life." She wiped her eyes again. "So that's it? You'll never forgive me?" "I didn't say never," I replied. "I said not now. I don't hate you, Mom, but love isn't something I owe you just because you've decided you want it. You made your choices every time I needed help. I made mine when you refused. Now you have to live with the consequences." She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. I stepped back toward my door. "I wish you well. I really do. But I don't owe you anything anymore." And I closed the door. Gently, but firmly. Inside, Lucas peeked out from our blanket fort. "Was that Grandma?" "Yeah, buddy. She came to say she was sorry." "Is she coming in?" I sat down beside him in our cozy fort and kissed the top of his head. "Not tonight. Some people have to earn their way back into our lives. Like getting a key to the fort." I smiled. "Exactly like that. Now, what's the password again?" "Strong boundaries," he giggled. And we went back to building our castle, making sure the walls were even stronger than before. 6 months have passed since that night at the door, and I can honestly say I've never felt more at peace. It's not the kind of peace that comes from avoiding conflict. It's the deep, bone-level peace that comes from finally living authentically. Mom hasn't come back. Dad stopped sending those guilt-laden text messages. The family group chat remains permanently silent, like a ghost town in my phone. Marcus unfriended me on all social media, and honestly, it was liberating to stop seeing his constant complaints about life while refusing to take responsibility for any of it. But here's what I didn't expect. Lucas is absolutely thriving. He started drawing again, something he'd stopped doing during those chaotic months when I was constantly stressed about family emergencies. His pictures are fascinating, mostly castles, forts, and elaborate structures with big, strong gates. I asked him about them one afternoon while he worked on a particularly detailed fortress. "What do these mean to you, buddy?" He looked up from his crayons with serious 7-year-old eyes. "They keep the bad people out, but the good ones can come in if they knock nicely and know the password." Out of the mouths of babes. My career has flourished too. Without the constant drain of family financial emergencies, I've been able to focus entirely on my design work. I took on freelance projects in the evenings, built a portfolio website, and actually got headhunted by a boutique agency in Scottsdale. The new job comes with a 30% salary increase and real work-life balance. Our little apartment feels like a home now instead of a rest stop between family crises. Lucas and I have developed traditions that are ours alone. Sunday morning pancakes with cartoon marathons. Wednesday evening walks around the neighborhood where we make up stories about the houses we pass. Saturday afternoon adventures to new parks, museums, or hiking trails. I've also started dating again, something that was impossible when every spare moment was consumed by family drama. His name is David, he's a teacher at Lucas's school, and he thinks my boundary setting is admirable rather than cruel. "You're teaching Lucas that his worth isn't determined by how much he sacrifices for others," David told me one evening as we watched Lucas play on the playground. "That's an incredible gift." Of course, there are still moments of doubt. Guilt tries to creep in, especially late at night when I'm scrolling through social media and see extended family photos where I'm notably absent. The whispers start, but they're still your family. Blood is thicker than water. Maybe you should forgive and forget. But then I look around at the life I've built, one where I'm not constantly drained, where I'm not a backup plan or an emotional punching bag, where my son sees me as strong instead of stressed, and I remember why I chose this path. I've learned that family isn't defined by who shares your DNA. It's defined by who shows up when you need them, who celebrates your successes without jealousy, and who supports your boundaries instead of testing them. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door has become more of a grandmother to Lucas than my own mother ever was. She teaches him Spanish while they garden together, remembers his school events, and brings soup when either of us is sick. David's parents, whom I met last month, treated me with more warmth and respect in one dinner than my own family had shown in years. My college friend Jennifer, who lives across town, has become the sister I always wished I had, someone who listens without judgment and offers help without strings attached. This is my family now. Chosen, not assigned. Built on mutual respect, not blood obligation. But I had a feeling this peace wouldn't go unchallenged forever. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew that eventually, someone would test these boundaries one more time. I just didn't expect it to happen on the anniversary of the day that changed everything. October arrived again, exactly 1 year since the conference that changed my life. My new agency was sending me to a design summit in Seattle, another career-defining opportunity. This time, though, I had David's parents eager to spend the week with Lucas, no desperation required. I was packing my suitcase, Lucas helping by adding his good luck dinosaur to my toiletry bag, when my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in months. Dad. I almost declined the call, but something made me answer. Jovi. His voice was different, smaller, older. Hi, Dad. I saw on Facebook that you got a promotion. That you're traveling for work again. I waited. I wanted to call and say, I'm proud of you. I should have said that a long time ago, but I'm saying it now. My chest tightened. Okay. Also, I wanted you to know, your mother and we've been going to counseling. After that night she came to your door, we realized we needed help figuring out how we became the kind of people who could treat their daughter that way. This I hadn't expected. We're learning about boundaries, about healthy relationships, about... He paused. About how we taught you that love was conditional on what you could do for us instead of who you are. I sat down on my bed, Lucas sensing the gravity and quietly leaving the room. I'm not calling to ask for anything, Dad continued. I'm not even asking for forgiveness, because I know we don't deserve it yet. I'm just calling to say that we're working on becoming the kind of people who might someday deserve a place in your and Lucas's lives again. My eyes filled with tears I hadn't expected. We've paid back every penny you spent on us over the years. Your mom calculated it all, the insurance, the medical bills, everything. It's in a savings account earning interest. Not because we think money fixes what we did, but because we needed to understand exactly how much we took from you. Dad. Let me finish, please. We also want you to know that we told Marcus and Carol and Pete the truth about what happened. About how we failed you when you needed us most. Some of them are starting their own counseling. Others are still convinced they did nothing wrong. He took a shaky breath. Your mother wants to write you a letter. Not asking to see you, just explaining. Apologizing properly. Taking full responsibility. Would that be okay? I thought about it. A year ago, this call would have had me dropping everything, rushing over, desperate to rebuild. Now, I felt calm, cautious, but not closed off. She can write it, I said finally. I can't promise I'll respond, but I'll read it. That's more than we deserve. Thank you. Dad? The counseling, is it helping? It's helping us understand how badly we hurt you. Whether we can become better people, that's still a work in progress. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my bedroom for a long time. Lucas eventually crept back in and curled up next to me. Was that Grandpa? He asked. Yeah, buddy. Is he asking for the password to our fort? I smiled and hugged him closer. Something like that. He's learning what the password is first. That's smart. You can't just guess it. No, you definitely can't. 2 weeks later, a handwritten letter arrived. Not demanding, not manipulative, just honest. Raw. Mom detailed every moment she remembered failing me, every time she'd chosen her comfort over my needs, every way she taught me that love was something I had to earn instead of something I deserved. She didn't ask for anything. She just took responsibility. I cried reading it. Not from pain this time, but from something I'd never felt from her before, genuine accountability. I haven't responded yet, and I might not. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was seeing my actual mother instead of the role she'd been playing. David found me that evening, still holding the letter. "How do you feel?" he asked gently. "Free," I said, surprising myself. For the first time, I feel completely free to choose what I want instead of what I owe. And that's where I am now. The walls of our castle are still strong, the password still required. But maybe, someday, if the right people prove they understand what it means to truly love without conditions, we might open the gates. Until then, Lucas and I are building something beautiful inside these walls, a life based on mutual respect, genuine care, and the revolutionary idea that family is what you create, not what you inherit. Peace isn't quiet, I've learned. It's freedom. And I'm finally, truly free.